Hello, 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 and welcome to the Painted Bride Quarterly Slush Pile. Thank you for tuning in today. I know that I say this all the time, special episode. You know what we're doing today, guys, and it's always a big surprise, but it always is special. And today's special thing is that we're going to be discussing fiction instead of poetry today. Um, so, what we always do is as we're reading submissions when they come in, every now and then we get one that looks like, feels like, sounds like, reads like it should be something that would work well for a discussion on the show. So essentially, we're having our editorial meeting on a show instead of in the privacy of our own private Zoom land. So we're welcoming you in. So welcome and thank you again. Um, my name is Kathleen Volkmiller, and I'm cozy at home in the change of weather of coldness, and I'm going to say hello to Samantha Neugebauer, who has a lot going on in her life.
Yes, hi everyone. Hi from DC, where I am here on maternity leave and like happily very cozy. It's in the 40s here in DC, so it's wonderful and crisp outside. And I am so excited to talk about this story today. I am going to send it over to Lisa.
Hello, everybody. So happy to be here with all you folks and talking about short fiction today instead of poetry, switching things up. And I am going to send it up to the Great White North to Dagny in Canada.
Oh, thank you. And happy to deliver on that today. We have half a foot of snow on the ground.
Oh my God, half a foot?
Yeah. Uh, some crazy folks played a huge soccer game in a snowstorm the other day. It was a huge match and they had to finish the season. It was insane. They had like snow shovels and
Wow.
So yes, I think it's all going to go and then it's going to be cold and muddy. So sadly, you can think of it as bright white right now. So yeah, down to you, Jason.
Hi, Jason.
Hi, I'm in New York. We were actually planning for like a really, really snowy winter, but my favorite thing about New York and the snow is that it usually makes everything really pretty for about 12 hours, and then it goes
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
When it lingers, it gets really gross.
Yeah.
Talk
Not to
about a
Peter's
slush
goodness.
pile.
Not
Talk
hostile
about a
gross,
slush
but it gets
pile, right?
pretty gross.
Yeah. Um, all right. Well, we have all that to look forward to. But right now, today, we're going to talk about a piece of short fiction by Candice Kelsey. And we have all kinds of little presents for you here because we're going to normally, when it's poetry, we read it aloud on the show and then discuss. We're not going to read the whole story to you, but we're going to read a little portion. And then, if you're interested, you can go to our website, pbqmag.org, and read silently to yourself or aloud to a room or however you'd like to. Read the story on your own, or we'll also have an audio link there to the complete story read for you by Dagny Forrest, one of our editorial staff members, so our managing editor. So, Dagny, I think I'm going to already bounce it to you. I think, would you like to start right off with reading a section?
I would be very happy to. Yeah, we're just starting with the first section of Catherine of the Exvangelical Deconstruction. Catherine's thumb hovers over Duolingo's question, her mind dim from doom scrolling, chest dead as TikTok. The green owl stares. She swears its beak is twitching. Got 5 minutes? She swipes Duo, that nosy bastard, and his taunting French flag icon away. No. The apartment is dim, the air too still. Days feel hollow and unhinged, as if she's Edmond Dantes tossed off the cliff of Chateau d'If, a brief and misplaced shell weighted to the depths of the sea. So much for learning a language to calm the nerves. Frida Kahlo's face stares from the page of a book she hasn't finished reading. I should just return this already. There are days she commits to her syllabus of self-education, and days she resents it. Kahlo's eyes pierce her, and giving up feels like large-scale feminist betrayal. How she has shelved the artist, her wounds, tragic love, and all. But even sisterhood is too much this January 21st, and of all people, Kahlo would understand. Catherine opens her laptop and starts a documentary about bats instead.
Well read.
Thank you, Dagny.
Mhm.
Yeah.
A lot
I
of
also,
layers.
I can't remember if we said that this short story is by Candice Kelsey. So I just wanted to add that in case we missed the author's name. So we're very happy to discuss Candice Kelsey's short story today.
And
And
thank
it is
you,
short.
Candice, for trusting us with your work.
Yeah, thank you, Candice. And it is a short piece. It's under 1,200 words. Most short stories that we're looking at are usually more in the 4,000 or 5,000 range.
Does anyone remember like alt lit? Like back in the earlier 2000s, and it was sort of like a lot of stuff with people, like on GChat, and there was like GChat this, and then this person GChatted, and then it was almost like, Bret Easton Ellis or something like Less Than Zero, where like not a lot happens, and people are just sort of, like in these like very contemporary technological modes of communication. And it's sort of fascinating to me because all of those were almost always about reaching out. And in this story, it's so internal that everything's like coming through the phone, that everything's kind of coming through these apps. And so, like, the connection to the outer world is never to another person. There's no one else there. I mean, even Ocean Vuong, like, who's actually a person, when he does show up, it's in the dream, and he's like the dream version of himself. That even a connection is sort of mediated by a lack of actual interaction, by a lack of interhuman touch, contact, speech.
That picks up on something, Jason, that I felt really strongly in this piece, because of course we have that January 21st identifier that really helps us with placing this in time. But I have to say there was a really strong COVID, like peak COVID era vibe to this for me, because of how alone and kind of solely interacting with technology it felt for this character in this story.
Yeah, it does feel like it's, that removal from society like we did, which was enforced upon us during COVID, right? And it was a necessary isolation, but this seems like a self-imposed isolation. Like the interaction with humanity in the current moment is more than can be tolerated, And
Yeah.
and so we have the protagonist just leaning her head against the glass of the window, like longingly kind of looking outside, trying to get some relief, but still staying self-contained.
Yeah, there's something to kind of go back to what Jason said, that feels in spirit, in a Cuskian move, like that I am telling my story through the outside world. But unlike the outline trilogy and her kind of more recent novels, it's not human beings that are like making this outline of her life. It's these like, it's almost like knowledge. And it feels somewhat oppressive, right? It doesn't feel the way that the internet was supposed to make us feel. And so I think that it really dramatizes that suffocating feeling, almost like in Star Wars when they're in the trash chute and it's all coming in at them. But something else I want to comment on is, even though we don't know much about this narrator, it does feel like a mature voice. Like it feels like someone who maybe remembers a before time. And I don't know why I necessarily get a sense of that, because we're not told that necessarily.
Are there other like kind of cues that this is happening in COVID, like January 21st? Like what I was kind of confused by what I mean, this just feels to me like a lot of people I interact with who are so deep, particularly students who are so deep into these kinds of rabbit holes. And it's interesting because, I mean, part of what happens is this person doesn't land, or this narrator doesn't land on anything long enough to really get any depth. That and I love how it's always directed outward. How are we not talking about this in every history class in every school in every state of this nation before moving on to the next thing? That like, oh my God, this is the most important thing, and then that interactive space becomes the index of what importance would look like. Um, Before being interrupted by the green owl, before being interrupted by, La Boheme.
So maybe it's important to say January 21st is Inauguration Day.
Oh, okay.
And so I think this person is trying very hard to distract themselves from the outside world. And for me, that was the clue that was not, this is not COVID. This
Okay.
is an internal imposition of isolation because the outside world is more than they can bear in this moment.
Thank you. That is very, very helpful.
Yeah, and for me, there's this refrain, il y a toujours, which comes throughout the piece, which translate to that there is always more. But I feel like in the context of this piece, and assuming that, yeah, that reference is to this year's inauguration date and so on, I feel like it also refers to the fact that there's always more to lose, because that feels like a thread running through here, both personally and as societally.
Well, more to lose and more information. I mean, there's just kind of like this crush of culture and history in this story as well. We have
Mhm.
the language, the architecture, the art of Kahlo, the novel of Count of Monte Cristo. There's so much, the documentary, and this person cannot land on one thing, just completely gets overwhelmed and goes to sleep.
And then dreams about the
Yes.
Titum Arum from the Eaton fire, this corpse flower that apparently disappeared. And yeah, there's so many touch points in such a short piece. Yeah.
Um, I hate to come to suddenly speak up and then be harsh, but I think that's actually my problem with it, is that it's not an exploration of one thing. It lights on all of these things, and I don't feel like I get to know the narrator at all. And that for me is my problem. I don't know who I'm talking to or who's talking to me. I very much should say, since it is just like one interior monologue. So I'm having a hard time caring about what they have to say because I can't get engaged in one idea, one concept, one of these things that she's thinking about, trying to learn about. None of that. I can't get in it with her. So I am having a disconnect.
I
I
think
suppose,
part of
sorry.
the, sorry, Dagny, I,
No,
I
no.
think part of the idea is like fractured attention, like the inability to land and focus on anything, whether that's um, internet culture or the torrent of bad news coming at us all the time. And I think for me, that was interesting. Like some of the things that the protagonist lands on is this braiding of both terrible history and art's response to it. So it seemed like they were reaching for some kind of solution. Um, and in that I felt a connection in that, like trying to find a way out of this terrible news, the constant torrent of terrible news. I could relate to that.
But I share a lot of Kathy's experience in terms of reading, where I really wanted a character to engage me, or and you do end up with a persona, but the persona is so emptied out by the flatness of the ping, 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 or the zooming around of the internet's endless offerings. And so, I mean, I definitely, and that's, I think that's simultaneously the point of the piece, that this is, a kind of a way we live now, right? That this person is having a very recognizable experience of kind of just distraction. Um, and the question is sort of, do we want, are in that distraction, do we see through to a kind of deeper subjectivity, or do we kind of stay at the level of distraction that's being described ourselves? Does it just recreate for us like a bad day on the internet, or does it bring us a character who helps us understand what it's like to be experiencing life in this moment, and particularly Inauguration Day? Do you lean in? Do you lean out? Do you distract yourself? Do you, take some edibles and hope it's January 22nd by the time you come out of it? This is I do think like this is kind of the question.
I have a related question, I think, which is the character self-aware enough to be satisfying? Because I think this piece does a really good job of dramatizing the feeling, whether or not we like the experience of that feeling, as Jason was saying. But there's something about it that makes me feel like when I have spent too much time on the internet or pinging around too many things in a shallow way and nothing is sticking, I feel it. And I can't tell from this if this character is feeling that or not.
Hmm.
And if the narrator is detached, let's say, from the writer, which we're assuming, I would suspect that a narrator who doesn't feel that this is kind of pinging and shallowing is not a narrator that I find interesting. But if it is a self-aware narrator, then I'm understanding of it. And I think one of the ways that maybe we get the self-awareness is that the line about returning the book to the library, because it seems to hint at the idea that this person knows they don't have the capacity anymore or that day for kind of a deeper kind of engagement with knowledge.
And Sam, I also feel that that point is made in the section that Jason quoted earlier. How are we not talking about this in every history class in every school in every state in this nation? I think that is like a desire for more depth and engagement, from the narrator.
Mm-hmm.
Can we talk about the dream? I mean, because I will admit, like when it got to Ocean, I was a little like, I don't know. Like it kind of weird. I mean, I know that Ocean Vuong has become, like an incredibly central figure in American literature. Um, but it felt very odd to me to have it was he doesn't feel as distant to me as say like a Madonna. I know I've written about Liza Minnelli and I do not expect Liza to ever read my work, but I feel like Ocean Vuong is like a little closer in proximity.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I was just a little like, can we, I don't know, what did you feel about kind of finding Dream Ocean in the middle of the story?
I feel like for the type of person that is perpetually online, that is feeling these things in not a deep way, who feels they know kind of the right answers and what people should study, Ocean Vuong seems like the right kind of guide to the underworld. I think it's like, I think it is an
Nicely
apropos
put.
choice.
And Ocean, when he appears, he's also standing by the ocean. It's double ocean, right?
Yeah, totally, totally. Ocean with echo. Yeah, yeah. Well, and do people feel there's consistency with, so the title is Catherine of the Exvangelical Deconstruction. And we get references obviously to the work of evangelists and Christians in history doing bad things throughout history. And so by the end of the story, the speaker is reflecting on her own apparent exit from whatever church she was raised within. So everything is falling apart at the seams, and she is both a part of it and apart from it. Like each church she left, each youth group, an Awana or vacation Bible school where she tried to volunteer, to love the kids, to be the good follower she was tasked with being. So, I mean, there is a fairly, it seems to me, a fairly consistent thread through here on that notion of the deconstruction, which also includes our attention, as we've been talking about, and therefore our absorption, because when our attention goes, our absorption just bottoms out. So, yeah, what do others think about that?
Well, that was where I wanted to lean in. Like that moment that you just read, and it's not to love the kids, it's to love on the kids.
Yes, you're right. I
Um,
dropped
right, there's
off.
this
Yes,
fascinating
yes,
colloquialism in there to love on the kids, which is
yeah,
also like a
yes,
little
yes,
alarming.
yes.
Like
Yeah, a
love the
little
children,
weird.
don't love on the children.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
and that was the place where like the personality begins to come through. And we have this kind of hint of narrative and this hint of autobiography, or I would say autobiography, biography.
Yeah,
Um, and I so wanted that. Like in the title, that promise of that promise of story, I that was what I really wanted. And that sense of I mean the deconstruction I get, right? The deconstruction
yeah,
is that none of these things fit together and all of these things are kind of just pattern pieces with nothing stitched.
yeah.
But then the exvangelical part, I was like, no, like tell me more about that. Like I want the exvangelical. And it's such a great phrase. I've never heard that before. Exvangelical? Like that's amazing. I was like,
I hadn't heard it either. It's quite new, I gather. Like
self-explanatory.
2016. Yeah, 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 yeah,
Does the
totally.
work. Yeah.
Totally. No, no, it's really cool. And so I have to say, in the context of this piece, I agree with you, Jason. And I feel like we've had this conversation recently about a poem on an earlier podcast where I feel both like, yes, I wanted more because there's an emotional heart there where you think, okay, I really want to hear more about that. But I also feel that in the context of of this piece and what I think the author's trying to do, that the slipping away quickly because of this free fall state and walking away from exploring that any further also makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
I
I keep coming back to like the new critical imitative fallacy, right? Like you can write about boredom without being bored. Like, can you write about internet distraction without being internet distracted? Like, do we want to recreate or do we want to reflect upon? And does this kind of strike the balance? And is it, to some extent, it's like, we're an editorial staff with a very particular point of view and a particular aesthetic. And
Mhm.
it's possible that we're not in the zone for this. I mean, with one of the reasons I brought up alt lit was because I would go to those readings and I would just sit there being like, oh my God, like I've been here for 10 minutes and all that's happened is people G-chatting about where to meet at what bar in Williamsburg. Um, and people loved it. Like, I mean, everyone else was there for it. And I was like, yeah, I'm the, odd man out. Like everyone else thinks this is fantastic. I just don't use G-chat.
Yeah,
Um,
not your scene.
but I definitely use apps. I mean, you know, I've Duolingoed. I know who that green owl is. I know what those sounds are. Um, and so I think there's also, if the desire is to recreate a certain kind of negative experience, there's also a question of like, are we the right aesthetic team? And that might be a different question. If the goal is to kind of recreate that deconstructive moment of the brain melt, we may also just not be the right people for it.
Isn't that also fallacy of expressive form? I'm going to write about a boring job, so I'm going to bore you. She walks in, she sits down, she opens her laptop, she turns it on, she puts her hair behind her ears, right? Are you bored yet?
Yeah.
I'm for you to be. Woo! I did it, right? No, we don't wait, that's not right. That's not
No.
what we're after.
I guess for me, I will be the the good cop among the bad cops. I I I don't know. I think the idea of the art and culture coming back as a shred of hope in the end, maybe is what saved it for me. And I think it's the symbol of the corpse flower that has been allegedly stolen and saved from the blaze and is being dragged like a body in the backyard and replanted, you know, and this thing is going to rise like a phoenix, this stinky, disgusting flower, you know, it has been saved and will come again. And I found that the symbol of that flower kind of juxtaposed against the images of burial and drowning, which I think might be an echo of the internet overwhelm. So hopefully something good is coming.
Well, I was
In
gonna
the
say I
end.
really love I'm not sure I actually think the image is quite right, but that very end on Frida Kahlo's painting, right? This return to the idea, a scene only Frida Kahlo could paint, this kind of return to a pre-digital art form, and that all of these things being witnessed require some kind of shaping human hand with physical materials to get that paint on canvas. I did really love that gesture towards him. I'm not sure I agree that Frida Kahlo would be the right person to paint this scene, but I thought that that movement away from the digital and to insist upon the materiality of the painting, I thought was a really beautiful gesture that kind of shows the dissatisfaction with the distractions, the ways in which the pinging about is ultimately hollow and empty.
Yeah, and I guess I want the person that can paint it with words on the page. Like I want, and I think maybe I wonder of the sincerity of like, can this person paint something that isn't like this narrator can paint something for us that isn't this kind of relentless realism of internet life. And so I think it's super interesting to think of this narrator as someone who sees themselves as doesn't have access to the ability to do that. But I don't see that entanglement on the page. But it does make me think interestingly about the narrator.
Yeah, and I think what you said about the internet realism is really brilliant because I think that's kind of what's happening in the poem is that our reality is surreal. That the foundation of Breton, right, a surrealism, that if you put the umbrella on the sewing machine or on the operating table, your brain does the work of making the connections, that you can't not make meaning out of things. And so the absurdity and the surrealism of the realism of the internet, I thought was kind of like and deconstructive, right? That we can't even distinguish between surreality and reality anymore. So I mean, I see all these, really wonderful ideas that are happening in the piece. Should we vote?
Yes.
Is it voting time? All right. Everyone get your thumbs out. All right. One, two, three. And it's in. All right. Okay.
I'm Candice.
Congratulations. That was a nail biter. That was pretty
That
exciting.
that it's an interesting piece. It's got some demands, and obviously there's stuff where we feel it's not. Yeah, yeah. Read it, folks. Read it
Well done, Kenda.
or listen.
Yay!
Woohoo!
Yeah.
We did like a celebration sound. We need like a yeah.
Maybe the ding 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 from Duolingo.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
Hold
you
on,
just
anything but that. We're
remember,
gonna cease and desist.
Slushies, you've got options, right? You can go to pbqmag.org and read it. You can also click an audio file there and listen to Dagny reading it for you. Or, very new, here's a new thing. Um, after we say goodbye, if you keep it running, we will flow right into a reading by Dagny Forrest right here on this episode. But you can also sign off and do it later, whatever you'd like to do. Okay. All right. Anybody have anything else to say?
Just stay well.
Thank you for being here. Thank you,
I will
Candice
say that
Kelsey.
by the time, wait, I have one thing, which is that by the time this episode airs, there will be 2 new books in the world. One by Kathy Volkmiller called
Mhm.
Teaching Writing Through Journalism.
Yeah.
Journaling, sorry.
Yeah.
Bad mistake. Teaching Writing Through Journaling. And another by Kathy. Do you want to say what the other text is?
Oh, it's called let me think. Teaching Writing Through Poetry by Jason Schneiderman.
Oh,
Yeah,
that guy.
my book already is in hand, Jason. I got it on Friday. So you're gonna be any minute. I have the physical hard copy now in my hand. And I don't have one here to hold up. But yep. We also had the announcement that the slushies don't know that our very own Samantha Neugebauer won the Washington Writers Short Story contest, and she is having a collection of her short stories be released next January.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
2027. Yes.
27. We
Oh,
gotta wait
okay.
a
I was
minute.
gonna say like 20. That's
Wait a
okay.
minute.
That makes
We
more
will
sense.
we'll let slushies
Yeah.
know when it happens. Yeah, so
Mhm.
congratulations to Sam on that again.
Well done.
Thank you.
Woohoo. So everybody, you got a lot to read. So I'm gonna do our sign off and say keep reading. Woohoo!
Woo!